If we can we keep it closer to an hour? Is that
Yeah,
possible?
it's just you and I. So yeah, it's just you and me with it. We could definitely do that.
Okay.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Happy Thankful Thursday and happy Kwanzaa. Happy fourth day of Kwanzaa. Habari Gani, right? What's the news? Habari Gani. We had not been starting like that, but that is actually how you start greeting when you say happy Kwanzaa. It is Habari Gani. And it is what's the news, right, Dr. Chika?
Yes, it is. And when somebody asks you Habari Gani, then you're supposed to say the principle of the day. And of course, the principle for today is Ujamaa, Cooperative Economics, to build and develop our own stores, shops, and other businesses together and to profit from them together.
Yes, so Habari Gani, and then you say Ujamaa, right? And so we are going to give it a few minutes before we start, allow people to come in. Go ahead and share the space. And thank you guys in advance for sharing and joining us tonight. We look forward to this conversation. Every night has been a very impactful night. And I think each conversation just gets that much better just because you're building on the principles. As it was stated last night, they're not in the order that they're in by happenstance, right? This is intentional. This is purposeful. And so tonight it is about cooperative economics. Hopefully some of you all saw my post about it. And of course, we're going to have a deep discussion about it with Dr. Chike Akua and look to see some of the responses from you all as well. Hello, Miss Dot. Thank you for joining us. Retired principal. I'm sure you reflect on the days often. Hello, family. Hopefully that weather is getting better there in Buffalo, New York. Thank you for sharing those pictures with me, Vicky. Something to see all of that snow. My goodness, we can't fathom that type of thing here in Florida. But wow, it was a lot.
I spoke with Vicky earlier today, and it's just like you said, it's hard to fathom uh, just how much snow, and then the fact that they had hurricane force winds in addition to all the snow.
Yes.
So, yeah, our thoughts and prayers are definitely with everybody up in the Buffalo area.
Yes, and thanking God for his protection over you and your family, Vicky. We had a great conversation today about how it just could have easily been one of you all, with all that was happening. So that is awesome. And that is definitely needed, Miss McKeever. We know we need that. We need that mentoring. Always good to have experience speaking to us because we don't have to make all the mistakes.
Right.
Yes, welcome, welcome, welcome. Habari Gani, happy Kwanzaa. We look forward to having a conversation tonight about cooperative economics, guys. Now, this probably is one that is most near and dear to me. It's the cooperative economics, and I am excited about having this conversation tonight. I'm going to give it a few more minutes to allow people in. While we're doing that, Dr. Chika, remind me to call you. I need to speak with you about a program that is going to be for at Clark Atlanta University, an opportunity for students to get some internships,
Oh, wonderful.
paid internships. So
I say,
through an organization that I
wow.
work with, and they pay them pretty well. So I told her I would definitely connect you, and so
Oh,
we would
wonderful.
definitely talk. So
Thank
Sora Anika, I've already done my job. So while you're watching tonight, you'll know that I've already done what you asked me to do.
All right. So
Habari Ghani.
this is through your sorority.
No, this is through LISC. This is an organization that I work with now here in Jacksonville. It's the Local Initiative Support Coalition.
Mm-hmm.
It's a phenomenal organization. They do a lot of giving. They do a lot of grant money allocation. We give allocation to Goodwill, Lutheran Services, all these different organizations to do different types of training, like financial coaching and some other things, real estate development, small business. But they're looking for minorities. They're looking for African Americans at HBCUs, and so they have this internship program that they started
Great.
recently. Yes,
Well, we got plenty of them at CAU.
I know. I know.
All right.
Thank you, Miss Donna, for always sharing the news, getting people in here. Gonna give it a few more minutes. Y'all like how we're right on time. So we always give you guys though a little grace to get in. And so of course at this time it's a perfect time to share any comments, If there's anything that you've already taken back to your spaces and places, be that personal, professional, school-wide, please feel free to share what you've learned, what has impacted you the most, what are your key takeaways. We look forward to hearing those from you guys and reading those and reflecting on those things. And I know these last 3 days have been great for me. Just a reignition, I think, is always needed. I mean, I do feel, like I said last night, all of us have a fire burning in us. And Principal Presley said it, that sometimes it gets dormant. Sometimes that fire gets stoked. You know, sometimes we let it go out, but then we have to stoke it and get it back going. And the best way to do that, we know, is through village, through connection, through being with like-minded people. And so always thankful for our elders, our Black educators, our elders, Principal Kafele and Dr. Chike Akua, for sharing their expertise and insight. Oh, Morris Brown.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, Dot. Got some history going on in the family. Well,
Yes,
all of us
yes.
do it one way or another.
Right, one way or another,
Great
right.
that you know it.
It is great that you know it. We were having that conversation too, just about how a lot of us have no identity beyond maybe just that first generation, the one we're in. We can't reach back and find out any of that information and how that impacts you.
Yes, yes, that's so important. So important. One of my elders was actually my dissertation advisor's husband. Is from Mali, and he traces his ancestry all the way back to Sunni Ali Bear, which I believe is like this 1300s.
Wow.
But that was a normal part of his education in Mali, to be able to recite your family line going back centuries.
Wow.
So think about the power in that.
Yes, yes.
Knowing, all of the incredible people that were in your family line and the things that they did, and knowing that you have a responsibility to carry that on,
Yes, that right, exactly. And
Mhm.
so when we can't do that, we do have to let them know about their ancestors, maybe not direct lineage, but that is in their bloodlines, one way or the other. And
Absolutely.
so that is why history is so important, so
Yeah.
important. And I think we've been failing our babies recently and not making sure they understand the importance of history.
Hmm. Yeah, and what's interesting about that, one of the classes I teach is history of American higher education. And when we
Hmm.
get into the founding of HBCUs and the establishment of fraternities and sororities and things like that, one of the first things sisters and brothers learn when they go online to pledge is the history of their organization. And you tell me, because I'm not in one, but you got to know that backwards and forwards. You got to be able
Yes,
to cite it at any
yes,
time somebody asks you, right?
yes, yes,
Because it's that important, and they want you to know who those founding elders and ancestors were for that particular fraternity or sorority.
yes,
In addition, those systems were established based on traditional African rites of passage celebrations or ceremonies,
yes,
so forth.
yes, yes,
All of
yes.
this stuff is
Thank you for saying that, because people think that sometimes they think it's cultish, and it's like, no, not at all. We believe in God. We
right, right,
we're no deities other than God, the
right.
higher power. That's it. So yes,
So knowing our history in every way, in our personal family and from our organizations, from our faith-based organizations, knowing our history is so very important. And Kwanzaa helps us to recenter ourselves in the best of our history and culture.
yes, it definitely strengthens character.
Hmm.
Oh,
Definitely.
there's Dr. Angie saying they got traced back to
Yes.
Fulani and Yoruba people.
Ashe. Wonderful. Absolutely.
Ashford says his family and they're utilizing your Kwanzaa Reawakening book.
Yes. All right, Brother Ashford. I think I remember us shipping that out last week or so. Wonderful. All right.
Awesome. Yes.
We appreciate your support. And that's part of what
The talk
Ujamaa
is tonight.
Cooperative Economics is all
That's
about. So
right.
we can use him as an example. He purchased, he said, I think he said that's one of 3 of my books that he has. I tell people, Dr. Chester, that Years ago, when you thought you were buying a book, you weren't really buying a book. You were buying diapers for my son for the week.
Mm,
Because that $15 or $20, I was literally going straight to the store to buy
mm.
diapers for my sons.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
so it was that critical. And so we have to support the people that are supporting us. And I tell people all the time, if you want this, what's in this little ball black head, working for you, then we have to support our own,
Yes,
because this
yes,
is not being
yes.
brought to you by a grant from one of the major corporations or something like that. This is brought to you by hardworking Black people.
And what a great way to start tonight's conversation. That's a great segue
Yes.
into tonight's conversation, guys. And we know it is Ujamaa, right? It is cooperative economics. And before we talk about Ujamaa, we get into that. We know that we've had our first 3 nights of Kwanzaa. And so I'll just let Dr. Chika just briefly, quickly summarize the first 3 nights, again,
Sure.
because we may have some new people, just that basic Kwanzaa and the 7 principles and what it's based on and where we are now before we get into that conversation.
Yes, absolutely. So, for those of you who may be joining us for the first time or just by way of review, Kwanzaa is an African American cultural holiday. It's a holiday based on family, community, and culture. Kwanzaa is a Swahili word which means first fruits, and it was created by Dr. Maulana Karenga back in 1966. Now, though it was created in 1966, it was based on traditional African harvest celebrations. And one of the things Dr. Karenga noticed in his research when he was studying African harvest celebrations, and whether he was in East Africa, West Africa, North or South Africa, he noticed all over the continent that all these different African nations and tribes and villages and communities all had a harvest celebration. And the harvest celebration was characterized by the ingathering of the people, giving thanks for a bountiful harvest, honoring, elevating, and celebrating the ancestors, and celebrating all that is good. Okay.
Yes.
And so we celebrate Kwanzaa today because he brought together the principles that all of these African societies and civilizations were practicing. And he noticed that some of the nations, their harvest celebration was 3 days. Others, theirs was 10 days. Others was 14 days. Some was 7 days. So he brought it together and made it 7 days for the celebration of Kwanzaa. And he placed it at the end of the year because, again, that is when all of these African cultures and nations and civilizations had their harvest celebration. At the time of the year where the 2 years touch, the end of one year and the beginning of a new year. And so that's why we celebrate Kwanzaa from December 26th to January 1st. Dr. Karenga is the chair of the Department of Black Studies at California State University, Long Beach, and he's a phenomenal scholar in addition to being the creator of Kwanzaa. And so Kwanzaa is based on 7 principles. The first principle is umoja, which means unity. All the principles are in Swahili. The second principle is kujichagulia, which means self-determination. The third principle is ujima, which means collective work and responsibility. And the fourth principle, which is the principle for today, is that of Ujamaa, cooperative economics. And so what I've been reciting to you is the first 4 principles out of the 7 of what's called the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. And the reason that he established these 7 principles is not so that they would just be celebrated from December 26th to January 1st, but so that they would be practiced year round. So we
Yes.
take this special week at the end of the year to celebrate Kwanzaa, but these principles should be enacted all year
Yes.
round. So there's 7 days of Kwanzaa, 7 principles. There's even 7 symbols to Kwanzaa. So these are some of the basic facts about what Kwanzaa is all about. And in establishing those 7 principles, Dr. Karenga wanted to be clear that we needed to establish a Black value system,
Yes.
African-centered value system, because the values that we have taken on in this society do not serve us very well. And we need to make a clear distinction that we are communal, cooperative, and collective, not just contentious and not going at each other and so forth. We have specific values. And when we're centered in the best of our values, we are unstoppable. And so that's what Kwanzaa is all about.
Yes. So perfectly articulated for those of us that was introduced to it. And that was a great review, so that those of us who are starting to articulate it to others, we have a very good foundation as to how to speak about Kwanzaa. And as he stated, guys, although we do it at the end of the year and it's touching the new year, it is so that we continue that 365 days a year. It is not just to be celebrated these 7 days and we put our candles up and we put our display up, and then it doesn't come back out until December 26th, right?
Mhm.
That is just the time of recentering to get you ready to continue that work for the next year. And
Yes.
so well articulated. And so we are talking about the fourth principle tonight. Like he said, the first night was unity. The second night was self-determination. The third night was collective works. And here we are talking about cooperative economics. And this one here, it hits hard, right?
Mhm.
And it's a conversation that we need to make sure we have and we give the right attention to it. And so, Dr. Chike, what is, and you spoke just a moment ago about buying your book and what that was for you, but can you again just re-articulate what does this principle mean to you? What is Ujamaa for you?
It's so important to me because, you know, the late great civil rights, human rights activist Dick Gregory said, "Where money goes, power flows." But at this very moment, about 98% of our power leaves our community as soon as we get paid, right? And so it's incumbent upon us, as we are increasing in our knowledge and our consciousness and in our competence, it becomes important for us to identify those Black businesses that meet the needs that we have, and go out of our way to circulate our dollars to and through those Black businesses that are meeting critical needs and solving critical problems in our community. This is not optional. This is essential. This is what all free, proud, and productive people do. They support their own community, and they're able to build an economic base that allows them to do the things that are necessary to build their schools, to build their community centers, their roads, their bridges, their entire infrastructure, because they're centered in their culture, which tells them to buy from their culture first. We are pretty much the only people who don't do that. And the reason that we don't do that typically is because we have been trained not to. We have been trained to believe that other people's ice is colder. We've been trained to believe that other folks' sugar is sweeter. We've been trained to believe that other folks' water is wetter. Okay, and so you have to go out of your mind, out of your way to support Black businesses. I'm so thankful that a number of people on the line tonight, we do that, and I'm so thankful to see, as I'm looking down the list of people who have tuned in, and I'm always looking to do even better. But we
Yes.
can look at our, at our family household budget, and ask ourselves, what percentage of our income goes to Black owned businesses?
Whew.
Something to think about.
Yes, yes, yes. So I'm going to read what I wrote today, and then I'm going to chime into what Dr. Chika said. And so today we again is Ujamaa, and it's cooperative economics, which means to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together.
Hmm.
This speaks to the importance of the circulation of Black dollars in the Black community. The higher the circulation of dollars in the community, the greater the economic stability and opportunities for economic growth. According to the University of Georgia Selig Center for Economic Growth, money circulates one time within the African American community, compared to more than 6 times in Latina communities, 9 times in the Asian community, and an unlimited amount of times within the white community. A Black Star Project study on the racial wealth gap calculates that a dollar circulates only 6 hours in the Black community, 20 days in the Jewish community, and 30 days in the Asian community. Blacks have an estimated $1.3 trillion gross national income, but only 2% is recirculated in the Black community. At one time, African Americans believed in the value of supporting Black-owned businesses. You must support your own businesses. Start being intentional, spending your dollars with Black businesses. And you spoke to it. What happens is we start to believe that their ice is colder, that their sugar is sweeter, right? And it is a conditioning. I was having that conversation, Dr. Chike, because I do try to be intentional about spending my dollars with Black businesses. And as I stated last night, I think it was the night before last, one of the biggest things that we do as Black folks is if we do decide to give one of us an opportunity, if that opportunity doesn't go as well as expected, we tend to just throw away the entire black culture.
The whole race, right?
The whole race. I try to support Black businesses, but you can go to McDonald's and that food can be horrible 3 times out the week, and you still gonna find yourself back there for a 4th time that week.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine a white person going to a white-owned business and receiving poor treatment and say, you know what? I'm never going to a white-owned business again. Nobody does that. Koreans don't do that. Japanese don't do that. Chinese don't do that. Jewish people don't do. Nobody does that, but us.
And very true, Mr. Hughes. We know that, right? Like you said about the urban renewal. We do know that was part of it. It was intentional. Those interstates being built right through our areas, etc. But here we are in a time now, because that explains a little bit of why it dissipated then. But now we have no excuses with technology and what we have now. There is no way that we cannot find Black businesses. Now, I'm somebody, Dr. Chike, and this is just me. Like, I'm not into like all the name brand stuff, right? I'm not a label girl. I'm not into the Louis and the Gucci and all these things. I shop at Ross. Like, that's like the running joke with people that know me, because they're like, oh, you look cute. I'm like, Ross, dress for less. That's where I shop. And I'm being intentional now about finding Black designers. I stopped wearing Tommy Hilfiger when I found out what he said about his clothes not being for us. I still can't fathom how we still go and buy like Timberlands and Tommy Hilfiger. I really not that gets me. These people literally articulated that their products were not for you. They were not created for you, and pretty much that they didn't care if you did not wear them. And it seems that our consumerism for them went up after they said this, as if we were penalizing them in some way.
It's a blatant act of self-hatred. But let me share this with you, Doc. The first time that I went to Ghana in West Africa was in 2007. And I was in the capital city of Accra. And I wanted to buy some kente cloth because I wanted to have some outfits made and so forth. I know everybody on here is familiar with kente cloth. Like, this is an example of kente cloth, right? And so I went to this one vendor, and I went to his table, and he's just talking to me as I'm looking through all of his kente cloth. And he said, if you come to my village, I get you any kind of kente you want. I said, where's your village? He said, my village is in Kumasi. And I said, well, where's that? How far is it away? He said, it's 2 hours away. I said, well, I'm with a group of about 150 people. I can't, and I'm helping to lead the group, so I can't lead the group. But he said that he came from a village of weavers. So his entire village was a village of weavers. I said, what do you mean a village of weavers? He said, every person by the age of 7 knows how to weave an entire suit of clothes. Now that got me thinking, because if we're talking cooperative economics, we have to move from a consumer mindset to a producer mindset. And when he said that everybody in his village from the age of 7 knew how to weave an entire suit of clothes, I said, well, dang, what do we know how to produce by the age of 7? What can our children produce? How about 17? How about 27? What do our children know how to do at the age of 7 besides play little video games? And I was on my son's big about that, from a young age. I used to always say, y'all on the wrong side of this equation. They playing video games. What are you talking about, Dad? I said, y'all need to move from consuming the video games to producing the video games.
That's right.
You never know just how much your children are picking up. My son now is in his senior year of college, and he's a software engineer, but his major is computer game design.
Yes.
So we have to be in this mindset of being producers. What do we produce? What can we produce that our people need, so that we can meet needs and solve problems in our own community and get paid, and paid well to do it? This is the other thing, Dr. Chester, and I know you agree with me on this. Uh, we want to make sure that we can prosper as a people. And you don't prosper as a people when you don't see the true value in your people. So we can't always be looking for the hookup, right? I know you've had to deal with that before, right?
Oh gosh. Yes, yes,
Now, if you
yes,
come to
yes.
do business with me and you stay with me long enough, you're gonna get the hookup. There's gonna be some things that I can do, but don't come looking for an immediate hookup. Come looking to invest in somebody who is doing great things in your community.
Yes, one of
Right?
my best posts was it said if my friend is selling something and she's charging $40 for it, I'm
Mhm.
paying $40 for it.
Right.
No, we don't go to any other vendor, no other business and ask for a discount. The only place we ask for a discount is with our own and the people that we're closest to. And again, to me, it all goes back to, and I'm gonna always say this, Vicky. You know, this is something I say. If you don't see greatness within you, you can't see greatness within me. And it's always the people closest to us that devalue us. I was joking with some people the other day. They was like, "Oh, people really like know who you are with Black Educators Rock." And I was like, "You all are the only ones that think it's not something of substance. And that's because you're close to me." Right. So we devalue the things that are closest to us. And I think that is because we don't recognize the greatness within ourselves and the value within ourselves. Because if I think I'm great, there is no way that I'm not going to celebrate and honor and support you because we're like kind. So how can I not
Yes.
think that you're great?
This kind of teaching is not in the schools unless you have a conscious teacher who puts it in the schools, right? Unless you have a Principal Kafele or a Dr. Marcus Jackson or a Dr. Angie Barfield or so forth. But we have to make sure that we're thinking along these lines. So let me give you an example of what this looks like in the school. You're absolutely right, Jacqueline.
Ooh,
We make
that one
the
hit hard there, Jacqueline.
proclamation
Before you
and
go
never
into the
go back.
school, touch on
Yeah.
that one, Dr. T, because we do have they're taking over like seafood now. We all of our seafood vendors are Chinese hair products. It is amazing how they infiltrate us and take over our most prized things that we purchase. I
And
don't
they're
understand. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, and all over Africa, all over Africa. I mean, in a major way. But when you talk about that, so part of that you have to appreciate because they're practicing their culture,
Yes.
and there's an economic basis for their culture. But the problem is, we have allowed others to benefit off of our lack of practicing our culture. We do have a culture of cooperative
Yes.
economics,
Yes.
but it was literally beaten out of us. Listen to me very carefully. A study was done, and of all of the lynchings that took place in the 1800s and 1900s, listen to this: 80 upwards of 85% of the lynchings that took place were black people who were store and shop owners, who were entrepreneurs.
Mm.
They specifically went after black people who had an economic base. So, for example, Ida B. Wells wrote her book, The Red Record, which was documenting all of these lynchings that were taking place of black business owners. So, cooperative economics has literally been beaten out of us and traumatized out of us. So this is really, really deep. That's why you have to make a concerted effort to go out of your way to support black businesses, because we have been made to believe, oh, I don't want to deal with any of that black stuff, because it was literally traumatized out of us. So this is why, but see, there's an African proverb that says sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. If just you or I is out there by ourselves, then we're vulnerable. But when we're together, remember we said yesterday, Ujamaa is collective work and responsibility. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. That's why it's cooperative economics rather than competitive economics.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Cooperative economics is rooted in mutual aid and sharing because we understand that it's going to return. What you put out is going to return. And so when we get back to who we are as people and we understand that, we get sabotaged because we get so caught up in the Eurocentric mindset. And most times it does not work for us because that's not who we're centered in. That's not what we're based off of. And so thank you for saying that, KM and Ponsa. We do concur and agree with what you're saying. Thank you. And so when it comes to that cooperative economics, we were getting ready to go into that education talk because we listen. So that takeaway right now, the first one is support Black-owned businesses. We have Black makeup, we have Black hair products, we have Black everything. There is no reason for designers when it comes to clothes and shoes and purses. There is no way that you have to rock some of the names that we rock. Like you can rock your own. It just all it takes is for you to find value in it. That's it. Right. Yeah. Cooperative rather than competitive because it will return. And it will return tenfold when it is done naturally and without competitiveness and without expectation. The earth is going to bring it back. The higher power is going to bring it back. Those of us who are successful know that we are successful because of where we come from, a place of purity, a place of non-expectation. It is in us to do those things. And so make it a point, starting as soon as possible to try to keep that dollar circulating more in our communities. We said 6 hours, less than one time, and those other dollars are unlimited. We rush to give our dollars to other people. And no one does the same.
But you know what, Dr. Chester, we've been trained to do that. I'll give you a quick example. In school, we've been trained to do this. Everybody who's listening to me now, if you're an educator, you know that there is a major publishing company that does a bookmobile or a book drive. So they come and they set up in the school, and people tell the students, up to a week in advance, hey, bring your money because they're going to be selling these books. I'm not going to mention the name of the publishing company.
Right, because most of us know if we're educators.
I'm so upset by this, but I'm at the point now where I understand you can't have a critique without a corrective. You can't talk about a problem without a solution. And so instead of just complaining about it, instead of protesting, because we like to protest, there's a balance between protest and production.
Amen.
Time for protest. But if we were more productive, we wouldn't have to protest against a number of things. So let me give you an example. Instead of protesting against the book drive or the organization that was having this selling the books on campus at the middle school that I was teaching at, I went to the local Black bookstore and I said, hey, can you come and set up in my classroom for 2 days? And I told all the students on my team of students, we had about 100, 120 students. And then I told the other teams in the 7th grade, and I told any other teacher who wanted to, you can bring your class through my classroom and look and purchase on the Black book display. So this Black bookstore came up and set up in my classroom, and that's exactly what they did for 2 days. And they couldn't thank me enough because they made hundreds of dollars in those 2 days. And that kind of money makes all the difference in the world. Let me give you another example. When I began consulting, going to school districts around the country, teaching them about culturally relevant teaching methods and African-centered teaching methods and strategies, I happened to be in one district up north, one particular school, and it was my second time visiting this school. And so they said, well, Dr. Akua, we have a half day of school. And the second half of the day, when the students leave, that's when we're going to have another professional development session. So they said, can you go around to our classrooms in the first part of the day and observe some of the classrooms to see if they're practicing the things that you taught them in the last professional development session? I said, sure. So I went and observed some of the classrooms. I went in this wonderful classroom, And it was two teachers co-teaching. It was a black male and a white female, and they were co-teaching. And they were teaching a story from the literature book about Jackie Robinson. Okay. And they did a great job. They were engaging the students. They were asking the students great questions. They were helping them to pronounce the words. And, the flow was pretty good and everything. So when we debriefed afterwards, I could tell they were a little anxious to see what I was going to say. I said, hey, you guys, you did a good job. You set up the lesson well. You executed the lesson well. You had great questioning strategies. I said, there is one thing I want you to consider. They said, what's that? I said, well, the way the story about Jackie Robinson is written in the book, it makes it sound like him going into the major leagues was a good thing. And they just kind of looked at me and they were like, well, wasn't it a good thing? I said, well, let's think about it. Do you know any major league baseball teams that are owned by black people? And they were like, no. I mean, I think still there are no major league baseball teams owned by black people, although I think Magic Johnson, I believe, is a co-owner in the LA Dodgers. But the point that I was making, well, guess what? The Negro Leagues were 100% black owned.
Right.
And it wasn't just the baseball team. There are all sorts of ancillary businesses surrounding that. There's people selling popcorn. There's people selling sodas. There's people selling all sorts of things surrounding. There's the bus company. There's the bus driver that drives all the teams around. There were restaurants where these different teams would go because they couldn't go to other people's restaurants. There were places where these black baseball players had to find lodging because they couldn't lodge where other. So there was an entire business apparatus surrounding the Negro Leagues.
Yes.
But they made it seem like it was a good thing that Jackie Robinson integrated the major leagues. Those two teachers' minds were blown away because we've all been taught or made to believe that Jackie Robinson integrating the major leagues was a good thing. And I'm saying it was not a good thing.
And that goes for football when we think about, it's all across. And it was all about understanding economics.
Yeah, but here's the other thing.
It's all about money.
Here's the other thing. Every year, and the only reason I know this is because my father told me this because he saw it. The only reason I know this, he would always tell these stories. The Negro Leagues would have an all-star game where every year they would play the Major League All-Stars. And the Negro League All-Stars would always beat the white Major League All-Star. So when we integrated the major leagues, what we were doing was integrating our money into their community and out of our own.
Yes.
This is a whole different way of thinking. Now, I'm not here to take anything away from Jackie Robinson. We appreciate all the wonderful things that he did, not only as a baseball player, but as a civil rights activist. But if you talk to your elders or read the history, you'll find out he was not the most talented black baseball player. They were looking for somebody of a particular temperament and of a particular skill set. And so there's a lot that I could say about that, but I wanted to point that out because what I've shared about that is a completely different way of thinking when it comes to cooperative economics. So what does that look like when we're raising our children? And this can be done in the classroom as well. I noticed when my oldest son was 6 years old, he found a way to go online and find these little video games. I didn't teach him how to do it. I think maybe my wife may have taught him how to find one, but then he navigates and finds all these different things. I said, well, if you can do that, then there's some other things that I can teach you to do. So I taught him how to write an invoice because he said he wanted to start making some money. So I said, okay, I'm going to give you some chores around the house. So I gave him some chores, and then it came time for him to get paid. And I said, well, you have to submit an invoice. He said, what's that? I said, well, that's how you get paid. An invoice has your name, your business company, your address, your phone number. It tells what services you rendered and how much money is owed to you. So let's sit down at the computer and let's type out an invoice. right? And so we typed out an invoice and I gave him this template. So he knew he could never come to me for money unless and until he had submitted an invoice. I'm teaching him from the age of 6 how to think as an entrepreneur, not just an employee, right? And I've done this with both of my sons. And then over time, instead of paying them with cash, I began paying them electronically through PayPal, right? So now both of them are able to make money on their own. Think about what that means when other people are searching for a job, and they've had jobs at different points, but they also know how to make money on their own.
Their own skill sets, but
By
that's
the
because
age of
they're talents and skill sets that they have.
Absolutely. By the age of 10, Dr. Chester, I could take either of my sons with me on a speaking engagement. I could go and get set up for the speaking engagement and leave them with my suitcase. They could set up my entire table of books and at that time DVDs and posters. They would know how to charge for each item. They knew how to take cash, checks, or credit cards. They knew how to give change, and they knew how to tell you what each product was about by the age of 10. Why? Because I was instilling in them the idea of cooperative economics, being producers, not just consumers.
And we have to start doing that in our classrooms. And we were getting ready to get into that classroom and that education conversation. And
Yeah,
before we can finish up with the students, but we also want to make sure that because that's students, he's talking about students. He said by the age of 10, that's fifth grade. We have to start deprogramming our students to think that they're all going to go work for people. We know that entrepreneurism is not a part of the education school system. We were never meant to be entrepreneurs. That is not what the K-12 system is about. And that is why, everyone is being conditioned to work for and to
right.
be employees. And so we have to make sure that we understand the systems that we work in order to be able to take advantage of them and to be able to shift certain mindsets and certain outcomes. And so, educators, I hope you're hearing us, what we're saying. We first have to understand where all this comes from so that we can kind of change it. And that goes into even when it comes to us and the curriculum and the books that we're utilizing. As he was just saying, Dr. Chike said, when I was an educator, I had the Black author come to my school, right? Because we knew the others were coming annually. But what I was going to do was help the Black author to make some money as well. And
Mhm.
so this is cooperative economics, right? It may not fall into your lap. You may have to intentionally go out and seek it, right? You may have to go find it, but it most certainly is needed. And as we stated earlier, sometimes it's so much bigger than just putting some money in someone's pocket. It is helping their family to thrive. It is
Yes.
helping their family to thrive when it comes to us.
Well, I'll give you another example, Dr. Chester. And this one, everybody, all the educators on the line will resonate with this because, especially if you're an administrator, because you may have seen something like this happen before. When I was a reading specialist at a Title I school, we would periodically, the Title I math specialist and myself as the reading specialist, we would meet with the assistant principal and principal from time to time, maybe once a month, just to go over the budget, to talk about our goals and different things like that. And as you know, Title I funding is funding that actually comes from the Black freedom fighters of the 50s and 60s who demanded additional funding to schools where there are low-income students, which is usually us, right?
Mhm.
So in one of my meetings with my principal, he comes in and it's a Tuesday and he slams this big, thick catalog on the table in the conference room. He says, we just got an additional $30,000 in student improvement funds. We have to have it spent by Friday. I want you to go through this catalog and order $30,000 of materials, have the budget to me By Thursday, we have to have this out the door, these orders out the door by Friday. So I slide the catalog over to me. I start flipping through the catalog. There's nothing in this catalog that's going to meet the needs of my children. But he's saying, we got to spend this money. And those of you who are administrators who are watching right now, you know you can't send money back. Like if you get some funds, you got to spend those funds. And so because I was not as savvy at that time, that $30,000 went straight into out of our community. Now, after that, I went out of my way once again to find Black vendors that I could put those Title I funds in their hands because they were providing goods and services that met the needs of my students. But this got me to thinking about what goes on all over the country. I even went, because I'm a consultant now, I went to a Title I fair and I looked around the room, a Title I conference, and very few of the vendors, let me say it like this, I was the darkest vendor in the room. Now, you know, if I'm the darkest person in the room, something wrong, Dr.
Something
Chester.
is wrong. Yeah.
They lined up to
But it's about our children.
they lined up to get
yes.
the money, making the money off. So I'm hoping that those that are on the line who are listening now, you are an assistant principal, you're a principal, or you're a teacher, and you may be moving into administration, or you're a teacher who can tell your assistant principal or principal where to get the right kinds of supplies and materials and things of that nature. We have to go out of our way to practice Ujamaa, cooperative economics. And so if I couldn't find the Black vendors that like they might not have been in place, they hadn't done a vendor application for the county yet. I say, look, bruh, I'm gonna send you this vendor application. Put this vendor application in, become a registered vendor with the county so that I can purchase your materials. And people have done that with me, Dr. Chester.
That's right.
And I'm asking others to do, like, we got people in BER who have the materials,
Phenomenal
goods,
resources.
and the services. So, but again, this takes that kind of thinking that is that most people are not thinking that way.
And to your point, that is what, again, I said it last night, the night before. That is simply what Black Educators Rock. That it's a nonprofit. That's our we're here to be the resource for all things Black education, Black educator, Black student. And so we want to, because when you're looking for those vendors, when you're looking for that book, that lesson, that consultant, that speaker, that trainer, we want that Black Educators Rock is the place that you go to find those things. And so that is Cooperative Economics 101 on the education level, right?
Yes.
And then we learn how to duplicate our systems within businesses and within other platforms is what our true goal is with Black Educators Rock. That is ultimately why we exist. It is something that since 2016 I have been articulating, and I won't stop articulating because it is truly what our goal and our purpose is. There should never be a reason why you are at your school and you are in need of whatever resource that you're in need of, and you say you cannot find a Black vendor because we're out here. And we literally, Dr. Chike, I think you said it last night, we have everything that we need.
Yes.
Within our reach. Like it's within us. It's all of us. We don't have to go outside of this.
But you know, also, Dr. Chester, the other beautiful thing about this is in my business with what I do, one of my biggest products is Reading Revolution Online. It's an online reading platform that increases reading comprehension, vocabulary development, grammar, writing skills, and cultural competency. But do you know when somebody purchases an annual site license to have access to Reading Revolution Online, I'm not the only person that gets paid. There are 7 other Black people that get paid every time somebody purchases that. So think about what that means. 7 other Black people get paid that we have on our team so that they get a percentage anytime a membership is sold. And it's similar with my books and other products because I have a Black printer, I have a Black company that does marketing and fulfillment for me. I have a Black graphic designer. I have a Black web designer. So, so I have gone out of my way to put other Black people in place. I could have done it easier without going that route and made more money not doing it that way. But what difference does it make for me to make all this money and my people are over here struggling? I already walked
Agreed.
that path myself.
Right.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
help other people. So, this is what happens when we practice cooperative economics. We're able to employ more of our people. We're able to help more of our people to operate in their particular area of gifting, right? So these are the things. Again, this is what we have to be about. And I want to thank Sister Dot McKeever Jeter, who said that she searched for Black vendors when she was a principal, and Dr. Jawan's Kunjufu was a great help. Of course, Dr. Kunjufu was a trailblazer for so very many of us. Okay. And so I'm asking you all to search until you find what you're looking for. Don't say, well, I searched and couldn't find nobody. No, search until you find what you're looking for. And if you're having problems, get in contact with Dr. Chester because she has a network of 150,000 people.
150,000 educators, but there are consultants, speakers again, and our membership is $50 a year. So when we go back to talking about devaluation and cooperative economics, the work that I do for Black educators is purely out of passion. I've never taken a salary. I've never made any money. Again, speakers like Dr. Chika and others have poured into the organization because we all believe in the mission, the vision of it. And so we have a difficult time getting Black educators to say, I'm going to pay $50 for the membership. When you join other conferences and other organizations and you get nothing, but you'll come and say, well, what do I get for these $50? But I know for a fact other organizations are $300, $400 for the year, and you get nothing from them.
Dr. Angie is making it plain in the chat box. She said districts are finalizing budgets in the next few months. Get the line item included. Also request PD funds to attend experiences like the BER Rock Conference. Yes, that's making it plain. That's something everybody can do, right? And that's how we have to think, and that's how we have to act. It's we make it more difficult than it has to be, and it really doesn't have to be that challenging.
It doesn't. And again, Black Educators Rock is going to be Black presenters, Black consultants, Black speakers, Black resources, Black curriculum. Everything is going to be centered around the Black child, and it is coming from a Black lens. And we've allowed so many other people to tell us how we should teach our children, what is
Yes.
best for our communities and what's best for our kids. And we're the only, again, the only culture, we're the only ethnicity that believes that other people know what's better for us than we know.
And again, because our right minds were literally beaten out of us. And KM and Ponsa says a great cooperative venture would be for many of the Black PhDs and educators to develop curriculum that can be sold to school districts. Already done.
I was going to
It's
say already been
already
done.
it's
We
done
have
and we're
curriculum.
doing that. It's done and we're doing that. And to put it in perspective, when I gave that example of my principal receiving $30,000 additional school improvement funds and it had to be spent by Friday, do you know what that can do for a Black business?
Yes.
Do you know what that could do for a Black business? That is the difference between a business staying in business or going out of business when they don't get those kind of funds. you know and so these things make all the difference in the world. So when we talk about Ujamaa, cooperative economics, to build and develop our own stores, shops, and other businesses together, and to profit from them together. We can't expect other people to do for us what we must do for ourselves. Even well-meaning people outside of our culture can't do for us what we must do for ourselves.
And you said something there, even well meaning, because sometimes they don't have any ill intentions, but we can do for ourselves. We have everything that we need. And that is what cooperative economics is about. When we look at that definition, and it talked about That definition again, I want to make sure I share that definition. Our own stories, and we talked about profit from them together. Profiting may not be monetary. It may be spiritual. It may be intellectually. It may be emotionally, right? It may be just our community gets better. Profit for us is not always about money, right? We
Yes.
know that if we do good, the money will follow. We
Yes.
knows that. And so we know that and we just have to remember to recenter and get back into that space and understand that.
And here I'm looking at the chat box again. Dr. Angie is on fire. She says everything that districts are seeking to fund, the BER conference provides applicable content and solutions that make you better and more valuable upon return. You have to show them the value. Now, if you're putting on anything in your district and you're trying to find Black vendors, contact Dr. Angie Barfield, because she puts on events with over 1,000 students and so forth, and she is always using Black vendors. And that's one of the things that I truly appreciate about her, is that she will go out of her way to make that happen.
So, Dr. Chike, I don't know if you see this. This is great information. Can you share the link for the Reading Revolution resource that you
Yes,
mentioned?
if you go to readingrevolution.org, readingrevolution.org, and there you can sign up for a free demo, but check out the video clip there. We're currently in a number of districts across the country, and we're even international. It's being used in Canada, and it's about to start being used in Ghana. But Reading Revolution is changing the game. When you talk about culturally relevant and responsive curricula that truly meets the needs of our students, it is an absolute game changer. So please check that out for your school. Again, that's readingrevolution.org.
And I did share it in the chat as well. So
Wonderful.
yes, yes, yes. I mean, phenomenal conversation, guys. Hopefully, we're finding some things to take away, understand about cooperative economics, knowing that we're everything that we're looking for. You know, if
Yes.
you want to change the trajectory of your life, of a student's life, all you have to do is look in the mirror. What you need is right there within you or within your grasp. You only need to just implement it and activate it. And
Yeah.
so
People are banking on our ignorance, literally banking on our ignorance. We must never lose sight of the fact that we were brought here for economic reasons. We are the reason that America is a world superpower, and became so in a very short period of time, off of the labor of our ancestors.
labor and intellect, physical and mental
Yes,
labor, not
absolutely.
just physical, because
Mental and
we missed that our intellectual labor as well. They want
yeah,
us to just believe that we were just physical, but no, no, no. We know how many things we've invented. We know how many things we are responsible for.
yes. So when we talk about what I experienced in Ghana, where every person could make a suit of clothes by the age of 7, what education apparatus did they have to have in place to make that happen? This is how I want you to think. What education, socialization, and apprenticeship model did they have to have in place? And is there a way that we could reproduce that, maybe by starting our own gardens at our schools where we're selling the produce to the community? All right. Ashford Hughes says, I'm working with my district to expand the canon of scholarship and research utilized by Black educators in the desire to live out education equity. Black scholarship on how to address our children is 100% absent. I use it intentionally within my professional learning with school leaders. Hats off to you, Brother Ashford Hughes, because the Black scholars are out there and we're doing the work. So it's not that intellectual capital is not there. It's just that it needs to be utilized at a higher level.
And we
But
have to find a way to make it accessible, like I said.
yeah,
And again, that is the goal of Black Educators Rock. Black Educators Rock is simply to be the house, the clearinghouse for all things Black education. It should be that whatever you're looking for, Ashford, you're saying, okay, I need a consultant to come in on culturally relevant pedagogy. Okay, we have Dr. Chike Akua. We have such and such. We have that. We have this. Okay, I'm looking for someone that does STEM, that does engagement in science. We have this person. We have anything that you can think that you need. We need community engagement. We have Coach Carlos Johnson. We need data. We have Principal Sean Hurt. we have tiers of experts, right? We have the international and national acclaimed, and then we have those who are still in the classroom and that are still doing works as well. We have anything that you think you need to address any problem within the Black child at Black Educators Rock. And
Yeah.
that is what I want to make sure that I convey when it comes to cooperative economics and it relates to our children and education, right? Because when we increase our educational um, aspirations, we increase the economics. Again, we have to stop continuing to teach what we know is wrong. Like
Mhm.
we know it's wrong, but we continue to teach what we know is wrong. Again, K-12 was designed for employees, right? That's what it's designed for. But that does not mean that we cannot be creative and intentional about the way that we manipulate the curriculum and
Yes.
we put in trainings and education.
So, in addition to what you're saying, I want to address a question that came across by Priscilla Alexander. Is the reading program standards based? And does the reading program show how it aligns with state standards? Because we are a national and international program, we couldn't align it directly to each separate state standards. Okay, but we have found that in the states that it's being used, that it does align well with their standards. And I'll give you an example. Dr. Marcus Jackson is the chief academic officer in Lancaster Independent School District, just outside of Dallas, Texas. Here's what he had to say about Reading Revolution. As educators, our goal is to ignite a flame that burns for knowledge. For years, Reading Revolution has been able to ignite that flame for many of my students. Get this, by improving reading levels by 1 to 2.5 grade levels in a year. I strongly recommend this resource. Okay. Now, as I said, he's based just outside of Dallas, Texas. Let me give you another example. Miss Latanya Stevens from Inkster Prep. She served as an assistant principal under Principal Sean Hurt. And Inkster Prep is in Inkster, Michigan, just outside of Detroit. Okay. Listen to what she says. That in her school, their students grew an average of 1.7 years growth in reading based on their state reading growth assessment, and that Reading Revolution was an integral part of that growth.
Let me say this though: Principal Sean Hurt and Dr. Marcus Jackson are BERs. They're
Yes, they
BER.
are.
They are people. Principal Sean Hurt is still in the classroom. I'm sorry, is a principal still, but he does consulting about data, how to get your reading and math scores up. Dr. Marcus Jackson, he's in Texas now, but he's been in Louisiana. He comes to districts and he transforms them. It is the ultimate example of cooperative economics, right?
Yes,
Not
yes.
they're bringing in Dr. Chika and others of us from Black Educators Rock to help transform their schools for profiting. They may not be profiting monetarily, but those children's reading scores are going up. They're seeing those gains within their children, which ultimately is improving their districts, which is ultimately improving his ability to move to other schools and get other positions, etc. So it all is cooperative economics when we understand that. I
So,
want to understand your question, KMM Ponce. You says, have we experienced pushback from the Black conservatives in power in different cities? And when you say you guys, I don't know if you mean Black Educators Rock. We're not known. I don't know. The revolution will not be televised, I guess. I always say we're the best kept secret. I'm not sure. And like I said, when we started, it was at a time when it wasn't cool and to be Black to have, now we know it is, but we haven't gotten the notoriety or the support or the attention that I think is due to us or that we are deserving of. But I also think it has been for protection as well. And so I
mhm.
don't know if that question was asked to us or was it being asked of the educators and different things they're doing when you say
Well,
Black
I
conservative
can
power?
I can say this to kind of answer that. In any endeavor where you're trying to push forth an agenda that's empowering and progressive, there may be some resistance, but we don't give our attention to that resistance. We're moving forward. So if there is any resistance, we always push past that. So in my tenure as a teacher, as a reading specialist, as a consultant, as an author, at every phase of what I've done, there are always going to be some haters, but I don't give my energy and attention to that. I give my energy and attention to the people who have a shared vision with me. Okay. So that's the direction that we're heading in. And I just want to say also, Dr. Chester, before we wind up, I want to make sure and share a story that embodies cooperative economics. It embodies each of the 7 principles, but definitely cooperative economics. So just I wanted you to be aware of that before we begin to close.
Say that one more time, Dr. Chike.
I have a story that I want to share that embodies cooperative economics and all of the principles of Kwanzaa. So I'll tell that at the
Awesome.
end.
Yes, I love that. So
Yeah.
he said, yes, BER. Have you experienced pushback from any areas? I live in South Carolina, a highly conservative area where Blacks don't embrace Black power. I know at one we did have some Black educators from South Carolina that attended the conference. They went back and they took the area, took their information back. I know we hosted our last face-to-face in 2019. It was in North Carolina, in Charlotte. And so I'm going to say, I know that we've had educators from South Carolina come to the conference, benefit from the conference, and take it back to their areas and feel empowered.
And
I can say that.
South Carolina also has the largest affiliate of NAPSE. The South Carolina SCAPSE is the South Carolina Alliance of Black School Educators. So there are a lot of conscious and committed Black educators in South Carolina. When you say that there are some that are not into Black power, you have to speak the language of the people. So I don't want you to think that I go into schools and raising a Black power fist and that sort of thing. When we go into schools, we talk about meeting needs and solving problems. And that's a language that everybody can, well, just about everybody can appreciate. So again, we don't go in using the language of Black power per se. But if you do the things that we do, then it certainly will lead to Black power.
Love that. I love that. Sometimes, right, you can't, sometimes you got to hide your hand. KM and Ponza, by the time they realize what you're doing, it's too late. It's already been done. You're oops. And guess what? It was successful. So are you going to say something about it now? Because it got us gains. It got us better attendance. It got us, more engagement. So those things are going to happen. Again, that's when we have to ground ourselves in and educate ourselves. And again, work on those first 3 principles. We're unity, self-determination, collective work. If you don't know how to do it, speak to others who can assist you with it and give you strategy. That's another thing that Black Educators Rock is here for, to be group mentoring. It's impossible for Dr. Chike to mentor too many people individually. But at group mentoring, that's what we do with each other. Me, Dr. Chike, Dr. Marcus, Sean, Principal Sean. There's a Coach Carlos. There's a few others of us. We have our own group mentoring that we do, right? And so in the larger scale of that, Black Educators Rock is about group mentoring. Anything that you need to find, you can find within that space of the Facebook group and or the nonprofit. You come to the conference, you find like-minded people, you align with those people, you guys mentor each other, because that traditional mentorship is difficult in today's landscape. And so we have to look in peer and group mentoring and become more effective educators, right?
Yeah. There were also, I'm so fortunate, Dr. Chester, that on my journey, there have been Black administrators who helped me to come up to speed. They taught me the language to use. I might have sent them a proposal and they said, I like what you do, but I just need you to change this language on your proposal to meet the needs of our funding. And so I've been very fortunate that around the country, there have been Black administrators and others who were not Black administrators who would tell me how to structure my services and different things so that they could utilize my services. And so I'm asking those of you that are listening, if you're one of those administrators who has funding in certain areas, go out of your way to take some people under your wing to do that. When you see that they're offering outstanding products and services, help them to come up to speed so that you can utilize them. This is what we have to do for one another. And these are the kinds of steps that we have to take.
Yes, and like I said, we haven't talked a lot about the Rock Conference, which is July the 13th through the 16th, 2023, here in Jacksonville, Florida. We are going to have some phenomenal sessions. I mean, it's going to be tiered. There'll be things for leadership. There'll be things for curriculum. There'll be advocacy and empowerment. We're going to be talking about how you change your school, how you be more intentional. Principal Sean Hurd is going to talk about increasing your gains, your data, and make sure how to read data and how you get gains. Dr. Chike talks about culturally relevant pedagogy. He'll also be talking about the reading revolution. As Dr. Angie said, anything that you think that you're going to need for your school, for your district, you're going to be able to meet those needs at the Rock Conference. And so,
When
and
you
we're
share
one of
this,
the
what are the dates?
July 13th through the 16th. That's a Thursday through Sunday. Principal Kafele has that Sunday where it's only for those APs, where he does his AP leadership face to face. He gives you a 4 to 6 hour intensive boot camp, and it is free because it's a part of the conference, and it is life changing, game changing, right? And
Yes.
our conference, again, is one of the least expensive conferences. It's not, is I can tell you right now, the price point is probably $399, right? It's going to be $399. I think that's what we priced it at. It's one of the least, and then you're getting meals with that. You know, we have a scholarship ball. We do luncheon, so you eat 2-3 times during the conference off of that $399. You know, unlike other conferences, and it's like plated meals. It's not just like box lunches. When we first started doing the conference, a lot of the speakers were like, "Oh, Dr. Chester, you feed us a lot and you feed us good, right?" The money goes right back into you guys. It's not, we're not getting money in it and making it like very, very skimpy. It's a phenomenal conference. If you go to rockconference.org, you can look at the highlight films from previous years. You can also see interviews. You can see excerpts from Dr. Chike and others, and you can just get a sense of what that Rock Conference is like. And so we look forward to seeing all of you all in 2023. And hopefully, you know, when we see you in July, we're going to probably have a roundtable where we talk about how have you been incorporating your Kwanzaa principles.
Yes.
Right? Because again, that's mid-year. We need to be doing a check-in.
Absolutely. I got something for everybody on that. This story that I want to tell you all, Dr. Chester, like I said, it encompasses all of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. And yes, Donna, we deal with gifted education. Anything you can possibly think of is dealt with at the Rock Conference, okay, as it relates to the education of our children. But this story that I'd like to share with you is in my book, A Kwanzaa Awakening. It's called The Fabled City of Pali. The Fabled City of Pali. And it was given to us by Reverend Dr. Ishaka Musa Barashengo. And the Fabled City of Pali tells us that there was a traveler who was traveling in Africa, and he began to be troubled at what he was seeing. And he saw a venerable elder off in the direction of the setting sun, and he goes up to the elder and he says, "Excuse me, sir, can you help me?" And the elder says, "Well, what can I do for you, my brother?" He says, "Well, I'm wondering if I'm getting sick or if I'm having a heat stroke." He said, "Well, what's the problem? What's going on?" He said, "I'm wondering if I'm seeing things." He said, "Well, what's the problem? What are you seeing?" He said, "Well, I've traveled all over the world. I've traveled all over the great continent of Africa. I've traveled all throughout the Americas and Europe and Asia, but I'm seeing something here that I've never seen before." He said, "Well, what did you see?" He said, "Well, when I traveled from one end of this city of Pali to the other," he said, "I noticed that there were only mansions in the entire city. And every neighborhood I walked through, the lawns were finely manicured." And he said, "I noticed that there was no trash in the streets. I noticed that the children were playing peacefully. But not only that, when I go back and I see that there were only mansions, there were no poor people. There were no people begging." Now, that just can't be, because in every society you have a lower class and a middle class and an upper class, but it seems like everybody is prospering here. Am I hallucinating or something? And the elder just rubbed his beard and he smiled and he said, "No, brother, you're not hallucinating. We pride ourselves in the city of Pali on making sure that all of our people prosper abundantly." So the traveler then says, "Well, how in the world did you do it? There's no other place on earth that has been able to accomplish such a thing." And he said, "Well, if you desire to become a resident of the city of Pali, we have a meeting with the council of the elders and the mothers of the city. And we bring you in front of the council of the elders and the mothers of the city. And we interview you. We present you with questions because we want to find out if you have the type of character that we want to have as a resident in our city. And if after interviewing you, the council of the elders and the mothers of the city, if they decide that they want to have you and your family as residents, then we have a celebration on the day that we welcome you to be a resident of our city. And every resident in the city of Pali brings two things to that celebration to welcome you into our city. The traveler said, well, what are those two things that they bring? The old man said, a brick and $1. The traveler says, a brick and $1. He said, wait a minute, well, how many residents do you all have? And the elder said, well, we have over 100,000. That's why everybody here in the city of Pali has a mansion. Because when you become a resident, you receive over 100,000 bricks and you receive over $100,000 on the day that we welcome you. Now, if I could do a poll, I don't know if we can do a poll, but I think I know the answer. How many of you all would like to be a resident of the city of Pali? Would you just put yes in the chat box or absolutely or something, right? But here's the thing. The fabled city of Pali doesn't have to be a fable if we understand Ujamaa Cooperative Economics. Because they said you only have to bring two things, a brick and $1, and we will help you build your mansion. And everybody eats, everybody is prosperous. This is the kind of thinking that we have to have in order to turn things around in our communities. Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. It's all about Ujamaa, cooperative economics.
Guys, there is no better way to end this than that, right? I mean, they're in here, Dr. Chike going crazy, just saying how powerful that was. And I mean, that was it, guys. That's the closing. What else can you say? Say that last line that you just said, the last sentence that you said, Dr. Chike. Nobody can
do everything, but everybody can do something. Bring your brick and $1 to BER in July, or your $50, you know. But the point that I'm making is nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. So join BER. Come to the Rock Conference in July. Continue to tune in to these kinds of broadcasts and post it on your page and tell other people about it, because this is a movement. We're taking our education back. And nobody can do that for us but us.
Awesome. Guys, again, thank you so much for joining us the first 4 nights of Kwanzaa. We have 3 more nights. We're going to do all 7 nights, right? We have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday left, 8 p.m. And so we want to, again, just thank you guys for sharing, for being engaging, for being here and allowing us to share this space and place with you for this in gathering, as Mr. John called it, because that's what we're doing, our own Kwanzaa celebration. And we look forward to making this an annual event by Black Educators Rock with our elders, Dr. Chike and Principal Kafele. And we just want to, again, the ending. What do I say at the end? We say,
Harambe.
Harambe.
Let's all pull together. Yes. So brothers and sisters, let's all pull together and do what's best. Let's practice Ujamaa. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow evening as well.
Thank you. Harambe, everybody. Good night.